In this class, we are going to study the control and coordination under biology. So we all know that animals have control and coordination on their body. Do you think that plants too have control and coordination? Yes, plants too have control and coordination. When you touch me not plant, it folds its leaves, right? And you know that the plant shoot grows towards the sunlight. And what about roots? It grows deeper inside the soil. So one is reacting towards the geo, that means earth. Roots are going towards the earth and shoot is going towards the sun. So all this indicates there is some response from the plant towards the nature. In the same way, even animals do have control and coordination on their body. Now, environment provides us stimulus. They provide us stimulus. And which of our part react to that are sense organs. Sense organs, we have 5 sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue and the skin. So these receives the stimulus from the environment. If you have the food, the taste buds will identify the taste, right? The food is an external thing we intake into our body. What we see in the environment in a form of nature, that will be recognized by our eyes, and the sound will be grasped by the ears. Smell will be known to the nose. What is essential? Sense organs. Sense organs receives the stimulus by the external environment. Now, how the response will be created in our body? For each and every stimulus received by the sense organs, it will be taken to the brain, and brain will analyze it and gives back the response. So, sense organs receives the stimulus. Brain analyze it and gives back the response. And what is this? There will be bond between stimulus and response. The bond between stimulus and response with the environment is known as irritability. Irritability is a process where there is a continuous bond formation between stimulus and response related to the environment, and that is known as irritability. Now, for this irritability, which is an organ associated? Brain. Only brain? Brain is sufficient to interact? No. So, brain requires certain peripherals, connections, right? TV cannot play itself. It needs certain peripheral connections it requires, right? In the same manner, brain has supporting material, spinal cord and nerves. So these together form nervous system. So today we are going to study nervous system in human beings. So in human beings, the nervous system comprises brain, spinal cord and nerves. So neuron is a basic structural functional unit of nervous system. Neuron is basic structural functional unit of nervous system. Now let me study the structure of neuron. So neuron has main cell body and long elongated structure, tubular structure, covered by a sheath, myelin sheath, and ended with a terminal button. Here there will be nucleus. A small branches are called dendrites. This is known as cell body. Inside the cell nerve ending. This is a small bit, functional bit of nervous system. Such neurons are present trillions, more than trillions in our body, and these are very essential to connect the brain with the external environment along with the help of sense organs. Now, how do neuron helps in coordination? How neurons help in coordination, and in which form does it carries the message? The neuron always carries the message in a form called electrical impulse. It carries the message in electrical impulse form. Do you think that throughout the body, throughout the nervous system, it is carried only in the electrical impulse? No. At certain region, it changes into chemical impulse. Where actually it changes into chemical impulse? Now, when we see the objects, when we hear the sound, when we taste something, and when we feel like cold, chill or hot, some experience along with our skin, it will be sensed by our sense organs. From the sense organs, it is carried to the brain with the help of nerves. Nerve in a sense, neuron. And how do neuron carries the information? Nerves carries the information in a form of electrical impulse. Now the information is collected by the dendrites, passes to the cell body, and after this it passes to the axon, and then it goes to the end, nerve end, and here another neuron, dendrite, it jumps here, it jumps over here, and the jumping region is called synapse. Jumping region is known as synapse, and here it synthesizes chemicals and it converts into chemical impulse. Here it converts into chemical impulse. Now this will be asked in your exam, how the electrical impulse convert into chemical impulse. Now I will explain once again. The information from the external environment carried through the sense organs, as when it enters inside our body, it captured by the dendrites, passes to the cell body and the axon. Everything it is in an electrical impulse form. When it comes at the end, it jumps into the another dendrite of another neuron, and here the chemical separation takes place, and that processes conversion of electrical impulse into chemical impulse, and then it enters into once again dendrite, converts into electrical impulse, and again dendrite, cell body, axon, and connects to the other neuron. Like this, from the sense organs, the information is carried to the brain. So like this, the neuron helps in carrying the information. The continuous bond between stimulus and response is known as irritability. And for this irritability, we require sense organs, brain and the spinal cord. And what is the role of spinal cord here? Now, maximum role is played by the brain and the neurons. Right? Neurons carry the information, brain will respond it, and the response is carried to the muscles. Sense organs receives the stimulus, carries the information to the brain. Brain responds to the muscles. It responds to the muscles. So this is how the neuron have function in carrying the information, and it always carries the information in a form called electrical impulse. Only at the synapse region, when it jumps to another neuron, it synthesizes chemicals and hence it converts into chemical information. And the question will be asked, in flow chart also. How the information is carried in the neuron. I will show you. Now take it as A, retract, and this as B, this as C, and this as D, and this as E. Now how the information is carried out? Put it in a letter form. First it starts from A, next B, and next C, next D, and next E. So the information is collected from the dendrite to cell body, axon, terminal button, and the dendrite of another neuron. If the question starts from here, how the information, now there is no letter like this, A and B is removed. The only three letters are given here. Now you can write the information is flowing from the axon C, D, and next E. So like this, they will give the letters. For this diagram, you want to write a flow chart. Now how the information is carried along with the neuron. So till now, we studied how the brain with the sense organs along with the help of nerves, it has stimulus response bond. Now, what is the importance of spinal cord? Spinal cord do have its major role in control and coordination. Yes, definitely. So, many times there are stimulus from the arms, limbs collected by the spinal cord passes to the brain. This is one function. And many times brain requires certain time for analysis. It requires time for analysis. If I see the picture, if the teacher poses a question based on the picture, I need to think. I need to think about the question and also answer, and then I can reply. That means brain is analyzing, right? It requires certain time. Sometimes we face situations where we don't have time so that the brain can analyze and give the response. What are such situations? When you touch a heart plate, immediately you remove your hand back. When you are walking on a lawn, suddenly a thorn bites you, and very immediately you take back your leg. And this is immediate. The response is immediate. It is not from the brain, it is from the spinal cord. It is completely by the spinal cord. Then what is this response? This is sudden response. Now, what is the function of spinal cord? Spinal cord involved in a process called reflex action. What is reflex action? The sudden response to the stimulus. The sudden response to the stimulus is known as reflex action. And for the reflex action, it is completely under the control of spinal cord. Nowhere the role of brain. When you see the situation, if you are thinking for the brain, let the brain give the response. Your hand will be burned completely, right? When you touch a hot plate, if you are waiting for the brain to give response, by the time the hand will be roasted, right? Tandoori, it will become tandoori. Now, in that situation, now reflex action, it is completely handled by the spinal cord. Spinal cord gives very immediately sudden response to the stimulus so that we can remove the hand back. When thorn is picked to our legs, we remove back our leg immediately. So all these situations, it is the example for the reflex action. Now how the reflex action takes place, I will show with the help of example and the diagram. This is the easy way to draw enter to the spinal cord, and this enters with the help of sensory neuron, and that should be associated here, and it should give response. And what is the response? You just move your hand back. That is the response. And this is given by the motor neurons. And these are associate neurons. This is the simple diagram of reflex action. The path it shows the process of reflex action is known as reflex arc. The path showing the action of reflex action is known as reflex arc. That is the path. The path comprises sensory neuron, which receives the stimulus, associate neuron, which analyzes, and it gives the response through the motor neuron. This complete process, the path is reflex action. The process is known as reflex action. And who is the main controlling part of the reflex action? Spinal cord. Spinal cord involved with reflex action. This is the path and action. The sudden response to the stimulus created by the spinal cord is known as reflex action. The path of the reflex action is known as reflex arc. This is about the reflex action.
This is a diagram of neuron and practice it for exam. And this is reflex arc.